I'm Laura Burnside. I am the co-founder of an organization called CSE Leadership. It stands for Coach, Support, and Engage, which is really what we do. And I have spent my entire career focused around how can we demonstrate value and honor of people and respect for every individual for who they are, so that people can show up to work as their whole selves, that leaders know how to respond when employees show up that might look or act or be a little different than they are, and how can we be curious and non-judgmental and really look at the way that we interact with one another in order to be the absolute best that we can be and continue to grow and develop to be our best selves. One of my very favorite quotes is my Angelou, "When you know better, you do better." And that is really the philosophy by which I live my life.
I love it. And honestly, you're in the right place. This is a safe space for entrepreneurs to tell us some mystical and wild stories that have happened to them in their lives, and to get real and to be themselves. And so I understand you have a story prepared, and you've written a book about it. And I would love it if you just jump right in. What was going on in your life? When was this? When did it happen? And where did it start?
Yeah. So back in 2011, I actually had a really pretty severe reaction to some medication, and it made my limbs go numb. I had no feeling in my legs, none in my arms or any of my extremities. They wouldn't operate the way that my brain was telling them what to do, but they just weren't responding in the way that normally happens. And so I'd be sitting and thinking, okay, I need to stand up, but yet my legs wouldn't do it. And so it was a very strange reaction to this medication. It took several weeks and months to be able to figure out what was going on. And during that time, not only did I have this physical ailment with my body, but my brain was jumbling words. I knew what I was trying to say, but I couldn't get the words to come out right. I lost all of my teeth. So it was just a very severe reaction to this medicine. And so I think at that point, I was probably in a very heightened state of vulnerability and was really trying to figure out, what is this trying to tell me? Because I believe that every single thing that happens to us in our lives is something, right? It's a message of some kind. We just need to pay attention and listen. And so, I finally get to the doctor. The doctor finds what's wrong. We figure it out. And 5 days later, everything starts coming back. It's like this amazing thing once the drug got out of my system. So I feel super grateful and super fortunate because I had every opportunity to really realize what life could be like in a very different way. And at the time, I was traveling for a living. And so I was gone all the time. Every week I left on at least Monday, sometimes Sunday, came home on Thursday or Friday. And I did that. I went to multiple cities a week. And so it was very exhausting during that several year period. And one of my flights home, it was probably about maybe a year later, I got on the plane and I was particularly exhausted. I had taken about 10 flights that week and had been just really on in different cities, different hospital systems, working with their leaders, working with their clinicians, trying to help create a space that was really safe for patients and their families when they're in their most vulnerable times. And so, it takes a lot out of you when you're doing that. And although I love every single second of it, I want to give everything that I have to every client that I work with. And so I had gotten on the plane and I was so tired, and I just felt this like nagging and pulling since my illness of needing to do something different, knowing that something was percolating, didn't have a clue what it was, just knowing I've got to keep moving my feet and doing what I'm doing. And at some point, hopefully something will be revealed, but I don't even know what any of that is. And so I was having one of these particularly anxious moments when I boarded the plane, and I sat down and I just started praying. And I said, I'm a very spiritual person, although I do not necessarily subscribe to any particular denomination of religion. I think organized religion can get a little messy and nasty, and I don't particularly care for that. But I do have a very strong spiritual core and a spiritual belief in a definite higher power. I refer to mine as God. However you refer to it, I respect and value that. But I got on the plane and I started praying and I just said, God, I'm feeling all of this anxiety and I'm feeling that you've got something moving and there's turbulence going on, and in my body, I can feel it. And I don't know what's next, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I need you to show me. I need you to just open the door and then let me figure it out. And as clear as day, I hear this voice. And this voice says, I've got this. And I literally sat there, I had chills everywhere. And I just I don't even know what to think about it, because I've never had anything like this happen to me before. So I think it's, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, there's nobody sitting around me because I flew all the time. I was the first one on the plane. So what is this? And it was calming and it was comforting, but it was clear. And so I thought, okay, I don't know what all that's about, but now I'm not in the mode to be able to do any work, which is what I typically did on the plane. I'm just sort of sitting in this space. And I put my headphones in, and the very first song that comes on is this song by an artist named Britt Nicole. And she wrote this song called Hanging On. And in essence, it talks about feeling anxiety and realizing that we don't have all the answers, and God speaks to us through these whispers or through these words. And that, when we feel in that space of the most vulnerability, it's really when God has us and is holding us, and we can hang on to that assurance. And at this point, I start bawling, because all I'm thinking is, this is the craziest 5 minutes of my life. And yet I felt safe and I felt held. I don't know how to explain it. And so I got off the plane. I don't know that I've ever actually been the same since. At that time, I wore a bracelet that said "Believe" on it, because I tend to be a little bit of a control freak. I'm sure many entrepreneurs are. And I spend a lot of time really focused on not my will, but what am I supposed to be doing and what doors are supposed to be opening. And so I wore this bracelet for many, many years that said "Believe," and I would just sort of run my fingers over it whenever I started feeling that feeling of, I need to be in control. I need to figure this whole thing out. I'm going to push and try to make something happen when that may not be exactly what the universe has in store for me. And even to this day, I wear this bracelet that is "Trust the Universe," which I believe if we sit back and just have an open mind and treasure these times of when we feel those anxiety moments or that turmoil that's going on, realize that it isn't about that. It's about the journey and the discovery that happens and the deepening of ourselves that happens when we allow ourselves to just be vulnerable enough and just trust or believe and listen and watch for all of the signs. And that's kind of how I've lived my life now for, I don't know, 14 years.
That was
Pretty
14 years
clearly.
ago?
Yeah, 14 years ago.
Wow. Okay. What was going on? That was 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So have you had a voice like that come to you since that time?
Not a voice. That is the only time that I've ever had a voice. There have been multiple God winks, if you will, that happen where it's I'm thinking about something and I think, oh, I think it should go this direction, and then I'll serendipitously meet someone who could actually help me make that happen. Or I will be talking about a specific topic, and then all of a sudden I'll get inundated with a lot of information from different varying people that I may have never met before. There are times when I do a lot of yoga. And so there are times when I'm doing yoga and I can really feel like I'm in the flow of the universe. And that's a very weird thing to even describe. But I know that when I'm in that flow, it's always very, very safe feeling, very comforting feeling, and very much like I am being guided by a light.
There's a breath that you do in yoga called the Ujjayi pranayama, right? Where your mouth is closed and you're breathing through your belly and finding that you're creating that fire.
Yes.
And they've mapped a lot of the neurophysiology that happens when you're doing the Ujjayi pranayama. And part of the beauty of yoga, so my wife's been a yoga teacher for years and years and years. Our community is all yogis. And
Right.
for anybody listening who doesn't do yoga, you should absolutely change that about your life. That's one prescription that like everyone needs to be on it. Take that more than Tylenol, I think.
Yes.
So you trigger your parasympathetic nervous system when you're doing yoga. You enter that you trigger the same things that you're feeling when you're getting chased by something,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to survive. You're there on your mat, and you're locked in. And so I think a lot of what happens is your body, it is forced to enter this call it alpha wave or beta wave. I don't know the details of
Whatever.
that.
I don't either.
Yeah, you're forced to get into that flow. And so I can't think of anything. I can't think. I don't get downloads from the universe. I don't get any answers to my problems ever when I'm in the flow. I get them when I enter Shavasana afterwards.
After.
So there's something to like you almost like hold your subconscious underwater because you're in this parasympathetic shock. And then when you're able to pull it out of there at the end of it, right? I do a lot of hot yoga, right? So you're there just completely spent by the end. That's when usually I'm like, oh, I'm a big softie, so I'll like cry and stuff. And I'll be like holding my wife's hand next to me when we're laying on the ground doing a little meditation. And that's where I start to get more answers. And God, they're never anything that I'm expecting. It's always stuff that I didn't go in thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious for yourself when you're practicing, do you get downloads and answers while you're flowing?
No, it's after, and it's not always immediately after either. I just know that I'm in that flow. For me, it's more knowing that I'm in the flow because then I know that I'm being led. If I get out of that flow, so if, for instance, if I go too many days without doing yoga, for instance, and I think for me, it's that quietness of the mind and the intense focus. It's the same intense focus that when I'm surfing, because everything in you is really focused on not falling. It's focused on whatever it is that you're doing to make sure that your body is positioned correctly, that, that you're in the zone, if you will. And I don't always get answers when I'm on the mat or when I'm on a surfboard, but I get the answer. But I think what that does for me is it puts me in that place where I'm open to it.
Yeah.
Where it quiets my mind enough that it allows me to be able to hear those answers as they come.
Now, as an entrepreneur, whenever you're trying to make decisions in your business, you made a comment earlier that I really want to call out and explore a little bit more.
Sure.
And that was you focus on which doors should be opening, which is different than like deciding on which path to take, right? It's more of just, you're in, I imagined that I'm looking down a hallway and there's a bunch of doors in the hallway. And I'm the type that is going to go and shake every handle and try to open it and like check for keys and just really try, force push.
Yeah.
And so when you say which doors should be opening, what does that look like functionally from a business standpoint, decision-making standpoint? And is there a specific experience that you can call on where you didn't know what was going to happen or where it was going to happen, and you applied, this patience, this presence, this kind of sense of being taken care of, and a really surprising door opened for you all of a sudden, and you were like, oh, of course, like, this is the way that it should go.
Yes. So when I say that, what doors should open and which ones should stay closed, I express gratitude every single day for the right doors opening and the wrong doors closing. And when my business partner and I started this business, we decided very clearly and very intentionally that we were going to say yes to what we felt was the right thing to say yes to and no to the things that we felt were not the right thing. And that is an important message and an important element in in this journey of business. When I left, so I'm a former hospital executive, and when I left the hospital setting, now I'm going on 3 years ago, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I could not do that anymore. My teams were all taking care of our care teams when we were going through the pandemic, and we'd had a terrible accident at the hospital the year prior to the pandemic. And so we were going on 3 or 4 years of just emotional overload to the point where it was so heavy. And because of what I do, I have to stay inspired every single day in order, like the nth degree, because if I'm not, overly excited about something, no one else will be either. So, it's that role modeling as far as you can to really get people on board. And so I left, and I truly thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what's ahead. I don't know what's in store. But again, I have to go back to just that trust and belief that this is what was supposed to happen. And frankly, for several months, I had my resignation letter written, and every day I would go in to go turn it in, and something would stop me. But it was like every morning I would just pray, like, if today's the day, it's fine. If it's not the day, then don't let it happen. And it was very clear the day that it was supposed to happen and how it happened. And again, this is no reflection on where I worked. This was my own personal journey of where I needed to go. And so I was at home, and I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no idea what is to come next. And so I started thinking about paths like I talked about a moment ago, but I couldn't figure out which door on that path was supposed to open. And so I got a phone call a few months after, and I was asked to go over to Saudi Arabia to speak at a conference. And if you had said to me 5 years ago that I would be going over to Saudi Arabia to speak at a conference, I wouldn't have believed that to be true. First of all, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And secondly, that just was never in my thought process, not for any reason other than it just wasn't, And so I went, and I spent about, 7 or 8 days over there among the most beautiful, wonderful people I've ever been around in my life. Generous and hospitable and loving people. And it changed my life. And so now I'm going again in just a couple weeks, and will likely be going back fairly frequently. And I just, again, wouldn't have ever believed that would have been in my cards. But at the same time, I feel incredibly grateful and privileged to be a part of their healthcare journey. And I just had no idea that would have ever even been in the cards. And had I not been open, and had I not been listening and courageously, frankly, looking at which doors could open and which ones needed to be closed, this one was clearly a door that was open that I couldn't do anything but walk through it.
Laura, where can everyone find you?
My LinkedIn page, I'm pretty active there. And also our website is www.cseleadership.com. And I would welcome any messages and thoughts and sharing from any of your listeners. I love this topic, and I appreciate the chance to share.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
This has been the Pulse Ox podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.